Hi, my name is Callie Vickery, and I am with Code 730 Mechanics. I originally wasn't sure what I was going to do for the speech today because I don't really have any leadership stories from family or anything like that, and I couldn't really think of anything from like a movie or a book, a parable. I couldn't find anything that was particularly important to me. So I figured that I would do it the way I pretty much do life, which is I would do it on something that means something to me, something important to me. So in our department, our crane department, we handle the refueling of the submarines every year or whenever they do them. And obviously, when you are refueling a submarine, you are holding a very, very important load, a very critical load. So if the crane fails, you need to have procedures in place to mitigate that failure, such as if the crane can no longer safely lower the load to the ground on its own power, you need to be able to go in and do that for the crane manually. In our shop, we have a box called the Casualty Response Box, and that houses kits that have tooling, parts, lists, paperwork, radios, everything that you would possibly need to be able to run to that box, grab it, go to the crane, and mitigate the issue. So say you are going to do a refueling lift and the crane, something goes wrong with the crane and it can't lower the load properly anymore. You will go to the cabinet, which I have over here. You would go to your cabinet, and you would grab your lowering kit. So your lowering kit would be a bag such as this, or a bigger bag, or a box. And you would go run to the crane and fix the problem. You'd lower the load safely to the ground manually. The box is a requirement. It needs to be done every year, every time. It needs to be ready to go. And since we're busy maintaining cranes and doing all the other things that we're doing in our shop every day, sometimes when we're not doing those operations, it gets overlooked a little bit and it wasn't locked and people take stuff out of it and move stuff around. The paperwork in there doesn't get updated. So when the time came to do refueling again, the box was a mess. And since it's a requirement, somebody had to fix it, right? Well, it was a job that was not all that important in the big scheme of things, since we were replacing an engine in one of our other cranes and doing various other things. So I ended up being put on the job at first, and it was me and a couple other people, but they rotate people around a lot, and I ended up staying on the Casualty Response Box project. And it went from me, I was new, so I didn't even really know a lot of these processes that were in this paperwork. I didn't know how to do an emergency lowering procedure or a bunch of the other procedures in there. And some of these things, I didn't even know what I was looking at. But I read the paperwork over and over and over again, and I visualized it in my head. I went on cranes. I did a whole bunch of stuff to make sure that I understood what I was doing, because it's important. It's really important to me, and it's important to the shipyard. And it's should be important to everyone. You don't want something critical like that, dropping or not being able to be safely lowered to the ground, right? So over a few weeks, I read all the paperwork and I made lists and I got a whole bunch of the parts together, made sure everything was where it needed to be. And there was a couple of times where there was a couple other employees who were newer than me. I was still pretty new at this point. I was only in the shop for maybe 6 months or less. but I dove right into this project because it was important. There was a couple of very, very, very new employees, maybe a month or less, and I was in a part of the shop where if you didn't have a job to do, you didn't have a job to do. You know, you could sweep or you could find something to do, right? So since I was on this casualty response project, I grabbed these other two employees that were way newer than me and put them to work. I showed them the paperwork. I explained what I had done so far. I laid out my notebooks and I listed all the things that I had done so far and where we were headed next. And we just kind of jumped into it. I directed them where to go next, who to go see about this part or that part, go over here and do this. Read this paperwork and see if you can make a list of things that we need. Hey, go over my list and see what we need. Go on the internet and look up these tools that we might need. Go here and see if maybe we can get this made. So it ended up being a pretty cohesive project. And then I left and went to Bangor. So they continued the box after I left. But I'm pretty sure that the box wouldn't have gotten near as far along as it did if I hadn't been there working on it diligently every day. And there were a couple of days where the other newer employees than me would have probably just been sitting around if I had not said, hey, I need help with this. This is really important. They can come with me and do this. So I became sort of the lead on that job, and I'm pretty proud of that. But that's my leadership story, and I hope you enjoyed it.